My younger sister wants me to share a husband with her. On the eve of my wedding, she and my betrothed got drunk and lost control. Then she gazed at me with tear-filled eyes. Sister, though brother Ching'an and I truly love each other, I cannot bear to have stolen your marriage. Why not marry together as sisters? Would that not be better? I found it absurd and refused outright. Yet my parents, citing family honor, drugged me and forced me to become her concubine. I thought keeping quiet would let me scrape by. But my half-sister changed her mind again. Unable to bear her beloved constantly lurking in my room, she locked me inside and set it ablaze. I was burned alive, my body reduced to ashes, while she earned everyone's forgiveness and lived out her days in peace. But when I opened my eyes again, I found myself back before the wedding. Faced with my half-sister's coercion, I slashed her face with a hairpin. Don't be angry, little sister. I'm just helping you verify this so-called true love of yours. When I opened my eyes to see Qin Shui kneeling on the ground, silently weeping, I was utterly stunned. Only when father asked in a deep voice, "Yue, what do you make of this?" did I snap back to reality, just in time to catch the fleeting smugness in Qin Shui's eyes. Smug? My gaze sharpened, hatred nearly boiling over. Yet outwardly, I merely shook my head with an expression of calm detachment. I've been swamped lately, utterly exhausted, so I hadn't paid much attention. Did something happen? And I pointed at Lu Qing'an, kneeling beside her, his clothes disheveled. What is Lu Qing'an doing kneeling here? The confusion in my eyes seemed genuine. Father's aged face flushed, and he cleared his throat uncomfortably, turning his head away. Qin Shui, explain yourself. Father had never spoken to Qin Shui so loudly or sternly before, and she flinched visibly. She pouted timidly at him, but seeing his unyielding expression, she turned to her mother with a look of hurt. Mother, her heart aching for her, hurried forward and pulled her into an embrace. Master, please speak calmly. Look how you've frightened Shui. Shui, you're still young. Your father only spoke harshly because he fears you might be deceived. Don't take it to heart. She shot Lu Qing'an a fierce glare. The meaning in her eyes was unmistakable. He was the very culprit who had driven a wedge between her father and Shui. Lu Qing'an, quick to read the room, immediately knelt and apologized. All that happened today is my fault, not Shui's. I'll take full responsibility and accept whatever punishment you deem fit. He slammed his forehead down hard. When he lifted his head, a red, swollen bump stood out. Such responsibility softened father and mother's expressions slightly. Qin Shui felt even more heartbroken. With tear-filled eyes, she reached out her small hand to gently stroke his forehead. Brother Qing'an, does it hurt? Let Shui blow on it for you. Lu Qing'an's expression shifted slightly as he clasped her hand in return. As long as you're here, it doesn't hurt. The two gazed at each other with tender affection, their deep connection radiating sweetness. I, however, silently poured myself a cup of tea and sipped it slowly. My calm, unruffled demeanor drew several sideways glances from Qin Shui. She slowly withdrew her hand, nervously twisting her sleeve. Her lashes trembled slightly as tears the size of beans rolled down her cheeks. Sister, I know you and brother Qing'an are getting married tomorrow. I've long accepted my fate and never intended to reveal my feelings. I just wanted to properly say goodbye to brother Qing'an. After all, tomorrow he'll be my brother-in-law. But I never expected to drink so much. I truly can't face you now. Her gaze darted around the room, settling on a thick pillar. She rose as if to throw herself against it. But as she stood, her skirt caught on the floor, and Lu Qing'an caught her in his arms. Seeing the tear-stained marks on her face, Lu Qing'an's heart ached. He glared at me. Qin Yu, if you have grievances, direct them at me. A man takes responsibility for his own actions. I won't say another word. As for Schwer, she's always had your best interests at heart. She never once intended to wrong you. Why torment her? He spoke with righteous indignation, as if I'd committed some unforgivable crime. But if I hadn't saved him, how could he even be here to spout such nonsense? When I was 15, I went out sightseeing and accidentally rescued Liu Qingyan from bandits. He was strikingly handsome, even huddled behind a tree clutching his books. He possessed a certain charm. That's when I felt like teasing him. Whose fine young man is this? Such a handsome face, why not come with me and be my mountain bandit husband? Liu Qingyan froze, staring at me in utter disbelief. Once he regained his composure, seemingly realizing his own discourtesy, he stood up, smoothed his robe, and bowed deeply to me. I am Liu Qingyan, a scholar traveling to the capital for the imperial examinations. Thank you, young lady, for saving my life. Yet he was far from as composed as he appeared, for his ears were flushed crimson, almost as if they might bleed. His eyes darted nervously, unable to meet mine for even a moment. Finding the situation amusing, and recalling father's fondness for supporting scholars from humble backgrounds, I brought him home. If he truly possessed talent, I thought, father might take him as a disciple. Little did I know that after father tested him, he deemed Liu exceptionally gifted and even proposed betrothing me to him. Father said though Liu hadn't yet entered officialdom, his future was boundless. Mother added that without powerful connections, he would never dare mistreat me. Recalling his pure innocence when we first met, I blushed and agreed. After that, he took up residence in our manor, immersing himself in his studies. He proved remarkably diligent, securing the runner-up position in the imperial examinations. Our marriage was promptly arranged. Yet I never imagined that during those days when I avoided him out of propriety, he had pledged his life to Qin Shui. Such an ungrateful, shameless wretch, what right does he have to reproach me? I snorted coldly, set down my teacup, and lashed out with a sharp slap. Fine. Then I'll come for you. Schwer is young, she couldn't possibly know how to consummate a marriage when drunk. But you're a man. You should know whether you were intoxicated or not. You beastly scoundrel. Schwer has only just reached the age of maturity. And you dared to take advantage of her. Luring a vulnerable young woman, this is a grave crime. I will file a formal complaint with the prefectural magistrate and see you brought to justice. Liu Qingyan reeled from my blow. Seizing the moment, I pulled Qin Shui from his embrace and spoke softly. Schwer, don't be afraid. Your elder sister knows you've always been proper and restrained. You'd never willingly conspire with him. He took advantage of your youth and intoxication. I will see justice done for you. The phrase intentional illicit relations hung heavy in the air, tearing away the veil of pretense. Qin Shui froze in place, seeing the flicker of jealousy in her eyes. I lowered my gaze and smiled coldly, still trying to maintain that image of fragile innocence and kindness. Dream on. Qin Shui lowered her eyes, biting her lip in silence. Cornered by my pressure, she turned pleading eyes toward her father. Her dark eyes brimmed with filial devotion. And father, clearly pleased, spoke up to rescue her. What's done is done. Pursuing it further serves no purpose. The most important thing now is to find a proper solution. Reporting it to the authorities is out of the question. It concerns the reputation of the Qin household. It's best handled behind closed doors. What do you think? Yuer? Was he suggesting I swallow my pride and endure this humiliation? I refused to comply. I curtsied to my father, my expression hesitant. Earlier, my heart ached for Schwer, so young yet suffering such hardship. I wanted to avenge her, but I hadn't realized how thoroughly father had considered both the daughter's reputation and the Qin household's honor. Then we shall follow father's plan. Give Shuer 3 feet of white silk to hang herself. This preserves our reputation while bringing the culprit to justice, the most prudent course. Father's face turned ashen with rage. You wretched child! What nonsense are you spouting? When did I ever suggest such a thing? Qin Shui stared back with wide, innocent eyes, brimming with tears, her body trembling as if about to collapse. Lu Qingyan hurriedly shielded her behind him, declaring outright, "Your heart is too cruel." Even mother looked at me with utter disappointment. Shuer is your own sister. You grew up together. How could you now force her to death? How could you be so heartless? Mother nagged at me endlessly. Yet she forgot, Qin Shui and I were not born of the same womb. I was her true biological daughter. Back when mother was still unmarried, her virtue was already renowned. Suitors were numerous. But it was father's vow, a promise he swore on his life never to take a second wife, that won her heart. After marriage, they lived in perfect harmony. Even after 3 years without a child, father never broke his oath. Later, when mother finally conceived, my aunt came to visit and taught her how to secure her husband's affection. She claimed no man could resist temptation, advising that a virtuous wife should proactively present her husband with a beautiful concubine during pregnancy, preferably someone with a known background to keep his heart forever. My mother initially dismissed this, but her sister insisted that outsiders were spreading rumors of her jealousy, urging her to clear her name. This left my mother restless and anxious. Coinciding with this period, father was preoccupied with official duties and grew somewhat neglectful toward her, fueling her paranoia. Finally, 5 months into her pregnancy, she gritted her teeth and sent her lifelong maid to her father's bed. Though consumed by jealousy, she had frantically bitten the quilt in her room. Yet when her father confronted her upon waking, she responded with magnanimous kindness, declaring she had merely done what any woman would do for her husband. Her father was deeply disappointed. Perhaps out of spite, or perhaps having tasted the forbidden fruit, he stayed with the young maid for several consecutive nights. The maid was kind and innocent, a stark contrast to her dignified mother. Her father quickly fell under her spell, elevating her to the status of a favored concubine and showering her with affection. But she died. She perished in childbirth while giving birth to Qin Shui. In the very year her father loved her most, mother lay awake for nights on end. When she saw the swaddled infant Qin Shui, she forced out a few tears and offered to raise her herself. Thus, I gained a younger sister. Qin Shui grew up sweet and gentle, a delight to all who met her. Mother, already seeking a reputation for virtue and harboring guilt toward the maid, treated her as her own flesh and blood. She showered Qin Shui with such favor that I couldn't even compare to a tenth of it. I harbored resentment at times, but she would always cling to my heels, sweetly calling me sister, and her voice would make my heart flutter. Whenever I saw the dimples appear at the corners of her lips, I would grant her every wish. Even when she set her sights on Lu Qingyan and became intimate with him on the eve of my wedding, I only worried whether she had been deceived or harmed. After that incident, I grew convinced Lu Qingyan was no good man and urged her to reconsider. Yet she accused me of being unwilling to relinquish my husband, even proposing we share the same man in the name of family honor and sisterly devotion. I refused outright. Mother drugged my tea, and father bound me, stuffing me into a sedan chair to be delivered to the residence prepared for Lu Qingyan. Forced to become her secondary wife, I found myself trapped within square walls, living each day at her mercy. Only then did I see her true colors. Though not biological mother and daughter, she and mother were closer than kin. Their ways and manners were identical, as if cut from the same cloth. Qin Shui was deeply calculating, though her mind was full of scheming and deceit. Her face always wore a sweet, innocent expression that made it impossible to guard against her. Meanwhile, my mother craved the world's approval. Even when her heart was churning with disgust, she forced a tolerant, virtuous expression. They cherished each other's company. Mother and daughter in perfect harmony, making me feel like an outsider. If that's the case, why should I care about them? I feigned injury, stumbling back 2 steps, and interrupted my mother's words. Mother, Qin Shui was born to a mere servant. She isn't your biological daughter. Yet you treat her so well, better than even me. Why is that? Could it be we were switched at birth? Or is there some secret you're hiding? Mother's eyes widened. She stammered an explanation. What nonsense are you talking about? You and Qin Shui are both my daughters. Yet I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. Could it be there really was a hidden truth behind Qin Shui's birth mother's death? Qin Shui saw it too. Her gaze darkened. Her expression deepened. But it vanished in an instant. She gently tugged at her mother's sleeve, her face full of affection. Mother, Brother Qing'an and I haven't resolved things yet. Please don't scold sister. She steered the conversation away, easing her mother's discomfort. Mother exhaled softly, then immediately turned her attention to me. Now that Shui and Qing'an have become intimate, it would be improper for her to marry you. You should yield the marriage to Shui. By all accounts, this should have been a happy ending. Yet Lu Qing'an, kneeling to express gratitude, showed little joy. The glances he cast my way held a hint of hesitation. Qin Shui, too, looked dissatisfied, shaking her head frantically, her eyes brimming with tears. No. No. Brother Qing'an is sister's betrothed. The invitation bears sister's name. If sister doesn't appear, people will surely suspect something and probe for answers. How could the Qin family's reputation survive that? Besides, sister has cherished me since childhood. Stealing her marriage would break my heart. Yet Brother Qing'an and I truly love each other. How can I choose between them? What if we both marry? She looked at me hesitantly, waiting for my answer. I slowly scanned the room. Though father and mother's eyes widened with shock, they quickly regained their composure. Clearly, they accepted this proposal. Lu Qing'an's gaze burned with fervor, already dreaming of enjoying the blessings of 2 wives. I knew that if I continued to be a pushover, I might well meet the same fate as in my past life. I had to bare my fangs, making them dare not touch me. I looked at Qin Shui, my face full of confusion. True love? So this wasn't some drunken fling? You genuinely fell for him? A flicker of embarrassment crossed Qin Shui's eyes as she quickly lowered her head. Sister, I'm sorry. I see. I sighed, feigning helplessness. After this incident, I find Lu Qing'an's character deeply flawed, unworthy of entrusting my life to. Shui, are you certain your feelings are genuine? Why don't I help you confirm it? Qin Shui froze. Hesitating, how would you confirm it? I smiled faintly. Then with lightning speed, yanked the golden hairpin from my hair and slashed her face fiercely. A piercing scream erupted. Blood quickly overflowed between Qin Shui's fingers as she clutched her face. Her eyes, finally exposed, held nothing but hatred. I wiped the spattered blood from my face, raising an eyebrow with a faint smile. Don't look at me like that. I'm just verifying your so-called true love. If Lu Qing'an still marries you willingly after disfiguring you, then it proves he isn't captivated by mere beauty. Taking advantage of the stunned crowd, I yanked her hand away, forcing her mangled, flesh-exposed face directly toward Lu Qing'an. Lu Qing'an's pupils contracted sharply as he staggered back 2 steps. But his reaction was swift. Though his face was ashen, he instantly put on a resolute expression. No matter what Shui becomes, she remains the wife I chose. Had his gaze not wavered, his words might have held more weight. I scoffed, praising them effusively. So you truly are soulmates. Then you deserve a lifetime of devotion. I certainly wouldn't dare come between you. May you enjoy a century of blissful harmony, sharing every meal with mutual respect. My slightly sarcastic blessing finally snapped father and mother out of their daze. One rushed to summon the doctor, tenderly comforting Qin Shui. The other hurled every teapot and cup within reach at me. You monster! How could you strike your sister so viciously? Someone! Fetch the family law! Today I shall punish you severely. The steward soon arrived, carrying a wolf-tooth club as thick as a wrist. Father gasped for breath and bellowed, "Beat her." 50 lashes! The steward hesitated, his face showing reluctance. He had watched me grow up and knew well that 50 lashes would leave me either dead or crippled. He turned his gaze to Mother, hoping she might intercede to lessen the punishment. But Mother glared coldly, a daughter's appearance is paramount. She ruined Schwer's face, this punishment is just. Not a single stroke less. With no choice, the steward stepped forward to carry out the sentence. He signaled me with his eyes to scream in agony. I understood his intention to lift the rod high but strike lightly, and I gave him a grateful smile. But who said I would accept this punishment meekly? I refused to endure it. The only way now was to make father fear me, to deter him from acting. That meant seeking outside help. I slowly scanned the room, meeting the hateful stares of several people, and smiled coldly. I am Qi Jingshan's woman. Who dares touch me? The clear voice rang out, and the hall instantly fell silent. Qi Jingshan's name still carried weight. Born into the house of the Prince of the State, a lineage of loyal martyrs who all died on the battlefield. He had rushed to the front lines as a youth to uphold his family's honor. Not only did he rout the enemy forces, but he pressed on to storm the imperial city of Beirong, slaughtering its inhabitants without mercy. It was said that day, corpses littered the fields, rivers of blood flowed, mourning birds circled overhead, never dispersing. A minister petitioned, stating his slaughter was excessive, violating the harmony of heaven, urging the emperor to admonish him. Yet upon his triumphant return, he brought back cartloads of enemy heads, piling them high in the golden hall. The ministers looked utterly desolate, trembling in fear. Qi Jingshan, however, strolled casually, bringing each severed head before a minister. He detailed the atrocities committed by the man in life, then asked, "Do you think I was wrong to kill him?" No one dared say it was wrong. The military officers merely clapped their hands in satisfaction. But the civil ministers, untouched by the baptism of battle and slaughter, had never witnessed such a scene. Several fainted on the spot. Father was among them. He wet himself in terror and ran a fever for 3 days straight. From that day on, the name Qi Jingshan became a forbidden word in our household. Now that I'd spoken it openly, faces paled. Father especially, trembling uncontrollably, his eyes filled with dread and unease. A tense standoff ensued. No one dared mention punishing me anymore. Qin Shui could no longer sit still. "Sister, I know you hated me for stealing Qing'an brother away, which is why you slashed my face. I don't blame you. But you clearly had no connection to Qi Jingshan whatsoever. How could you casually make such accusations just to avoid punishment? You know perfectly well, Father. And what if he finds out you've slandered his reputation with your nonsense? How will the Qin family bear the blame?" She was clever indeed. In just a few words, she not only exposed my motive but also stirred Father's anger. Yet she overestimated Father's resolve. Even if he suspected this might be merely my excuse to evade punishment, he wouldn't dare risk it. Instead, he'd see Qin Shui as an ill-mannered child who'd made him lose face. He shot Qin Shui a look of vexed embarrassment before ordering the steward to take me away. She was to kneel in the ancestral hall and apologize to Shui, not to be released without my command. This punishment was a mere slap on the wrist. Qin Shui bit her lip and feigned concern, stepping in front of me once more. "The night wind is bitterly cold. My sister's constitution might not withstand it. But sister, fear not. Once the physician examines my wound, I shall send you some warm garments. She deliberately emphasized the word wound, turning her injured half-face toward father to stir his pity and change his mind. Yet father avoided her gaze, merely adding coldly, "No one is to enter or leave. Let Qin Yu reflect properly." Qin Shui froze, her anxiety deepening though she forced herself to hide it. It seemed she understood until father uncovered the truth about my relationship with Qi Jingshan. No one in the Qin household could touch me. She murmured Qi Jingshan's name under her breath, likely planning to use him as a way out. But the outcome would surely disappoint her. I didn't mention Qi Jingshan's name without reason. We shared a connection from our childhood. It was the Lantern Festival of the 5th year of the Yuan He era. The emperor hosted a banquet in the palace, inviting all civil and military officials to bring their families to admire the lanterns. I slipped out midway and stumbled upon Qi Jingshan in the imperial garden, fallen into icy water. Back then, he was far from the heroic figure he is now, just a frail, sickly boy. And I hadn't yet been stripped of all favor by Qin Shui. Still ignorant and fearless, unconcerned by my own youth and weakness, I grabbed a long pole and pulled him out with all my strength. He promised me that if I ever faced hardship, he would do everything in his power to help. Back then, I dismissed his frail appearance and didn't take his words to heart. Later, confined to his home by the Duke of Jin to train in martial arts, years passed until a great upheaval came. He took command on the battlefield, emerging as a legendary war god whose fame reverberated far and wide. Though my father warned us he was terrifying and we must never provoke him, in my mind, he remained the pale, delicate youth of those days. So when we met by chance at a banquet, I intended to approach him quietly to greet him. Little did I know I'd witness him pierce a woman's chest without flinching. I overheard his subordinates discussing the body. She thought she could demand favors from the general just because she helped him once? Wanted him to do that? She deserved to die. Terrified that appearing before Qi Jingshan might mark me as another scheming woman seeking repayment, I fled in panic. After that, Qi Jingshan rarely appeared in public, and our paths never crossed again. During my previous life, trapped within the Liu residence, I considered seeking his aid, but with no means to escape and no one to turn to, I abandoned the thought. The next time his name reached my ears, I was trapped in a raging inferno, awaiting certain death. Liu Qing'an sought to rescue me, clashing with Qin Shui outside. He claimed Qi Jingshan had warned him to treat me kindly, fearing Qi Jingshan would hold them accountable if he learned the truth of my death. Qin Shui blocked him. She accidentally knocked over the torch and caused the fire. What does that have to do with us? Besides, she was atoning for her mother's sins. No one can blame us. Only then did I realize Qin Shui had always believed her birth mother, Bi Tao, had been killed by my mother. Her cruelty toward me stemmed from a desire to avenge her mother. Constrained by her status, she couldn't harm my mother directly, so she placed me in the same position as her birth mother, tormenting me at every turn. Meanwhile, Qi Jingshan had been secretly watching over me. Thinking I didn't want any connection with him, he dared not show himself. Later, upon discovering my imprisonment, he coerced Liu Qing'an into treating me better, though his misguided methods provoked Qin Shui's jealousy and led her to attempt my death. I genuinely enjoyed a period of comfort. For that, I remain deeply grateful to him. I'm fortunate he remembers the life I saved him and is willing to repay the debt. So in this lifetime, I can leverage his influence, borrowing the tiger's might to intimidate others. Though I'm currently trapped in the ancestral hall and temporarily unable to contact him, I trust Qin Shui will find a way. I disfigured her face. This is a blood feud. She must yearn to flay me alive. But to move against me openly, she must leverage father and mother's authority. That requires convincing father I have no connection to Qi Jingshan. This likely demands Qi Jingshan's personal intervention. How utterly delightful. Qin Shui certainly didn't disappoint my expectations. Father, citing my incompatible horoscope with Lu Qing'an, has now formally replaced me with her as his bride. Though the guests harbored suspicions, sensing something fishy, it wasn't their business to pry. Had she stopped there, she could have had a perfect wedding. Instead, she sent someone in my name to invite Qi Jingshan. I knew she didn't believe I had any connection to him and wanted to expose me face to face. Yet Qi Jingshan arrived, demanding to see me directly. Father personally released me from the ancestral hall. Mother took me to freshen up and prepare. Qin Shui and Lu Qing'an, who should have been bidding farewell to their parents, were instead left waiting in the main hall. When I appeared, graceful and elegant, Qin Shui, her face dark, nearly ground her teeth to dust. Hiding behind her folding fan, she made no effort to conceal her bitter resentment. I hadn't realized sister and General Qi were such close friends. With so many matters demanding my attention today, I've been neglectful. I beg your forgiveness, sister, and hope General Qi won't hold it against me. She curtsied gracefully before me, instantly drawing the attention of every guest present. Observing her subtle appraisals, my expression grew slightly cold. Qin Shui was truly malicious. With her first words, she insinuated an illicit affair between Qi Jingshan and me. Coupled with this last-minute change in the marriage partner, the guests would inevitably speculate wildly. A woman's reputation is her most precious asset. Scandalous rumors are notoriously difficult to dispel. If I attempted a proper explanation, it would only make me seem guilty. In that case, I'd drown it out with an even more explosive revelation. Just as I prepared to strike, Qi Jingshan glanced my way, his features distant, his gaze serene. He leisurely produced an invitation and tossed it carelessly onto the floor. I had been wondering why second Miss Qin would send me an invitation under your sister's name, hence my visit. So this was it? You intended to use me to tarnish your sister's reputation? The smile vanished from Qi Jingshan's face. His dark eyes fixed on Qin Shui without blinking, as if she were nothing more than a pile of rotten flesh. Who gave you the audacity to dare toy with me? His tone remained calm, yet it sent a chill through Qin Shui. Her hands trembled, causing her fan to slip, revealing her pale, veiled face. No, it wasn't me. She tried to explain, but meeting Qi Jingshan's piercing gaze, one that seemed to see through everything, made the words die on her lips. The way she averted her eyes spoke volumes of her guilt. I immediately feigned deep sorrow and demanded in a grave voice. Qin Shui, have I not treated you well? You harbored feelings for Lu Qing'an, and when he ruined my betrothal in his drunken stupor, I never blamed you. Instead, I willingly relinquished him to you. Why then must you tarnish my reputation? Just moments ago, I'd been agonizing over how to expose this without giving myself away. But Qi Jingshan had already set the stage for me. I couldn't help but glance at him with admiration. Qi Jingshan froze, his expression suddenly deepening. He cleared his throat lightly, turning his head away with a hint of unease. The exposed tip of his ear slowly flushed crimson, a beauty so dazzling it was almost blinding. My heart fluttered, and I hastily averted my gaze, only to see Qin Shui trembling violently, as if she were a water lily floating on the surface of the water. The older guests in the hall had already begun whispering among themselves. No wonder she walked with such awkwardness, she clearly wasn't a virgin. So she lost her virtue before marriage. All eyes turned to her, their disdainful and mocking stares making Qin Shui squirm as if on pins and needles. Her cheeks flushed crimson with panic, tears welling in her eyes. Sister, it was you who had another lover. You refused to honor our betrothal and schemed against me. She was quick-witted. She trailed off, her expression of hurt innocence making her unspoken words crystal clear to everyone. Some spectators, relishing the drama, called out to Lu Qing'an, who cowered like a timid bird in the corner. Groom! Why did you suddenly switch brides? Were you really tricked? Lu Qing'an kept his head bowed, pretending not to hear. He must have sensed the deep bond between me and Qi Jingshan, knowing better than to provoke us. Even as Qin Shui pinched his soft flesh at the waist under her sleeve, he remained unmoved. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Then Mother stepped forward. The crowd immediately shifted their focus, bombarding her with questions. Mother's smile nearly slipped. She looked between me and Qin Shui, torn, hesitating for a long moment before siding with Qin Shui. My second daughter is usually the most well-behaved. The implication was clear, Qin Shui wouldn't do something so outrageous. So the liar must be me? I lowered my eyes and smiled coldly. If they claim I schemed against Qin Shui, then let's report it to the authorities. Qi Jingshan paused briefly before smoothly adding, then let's report it. Arrest them all and send them to the imperial prison. This matter not only tarnishes the reputations of the two young ladies from the Qin family and the newly crowned runner-up scholar, but it also involves me. It's best to investigate thoroughly. He spoke with solemn earnestness, yet his words carried a heavy undercurrent of threat. The imperial prison was no place for the faint of heart. Those who entered rarely emerged unscathed. Though few knew of Qin Shui's affair, servants were inevitably privy to some knowledge. Once interrogated, the truth would surface. Moreover, noble households always harbor secrets. If someone cracked under pressure and revealed the family's dark secrets, the Qin household would become the laughingstock of the capital. Hiding in the inner chambers, unable to face Qi Jingshan, the father grew desperate. He hurried out, forcing a smile as he apologized. "Your cherished loyalty above all," she would never scheme against her own sister. It was simply that Shui and Qing'an, unable to hold their liquor, had behaved foolishly. Mistaking their actions for a deliberate plot, they had caused this misunderstanding. Father put an end to the farce with a decisive word. But the commotion surrounding Qin Shui and Lu Qing'an had only just begun. Not just their wedding, but the rumors spreading throughout the capital. Father, unwilling to face Qi Jingshan directly, entrusted the task of hosting him to me. I seized an opportunity to express my gratitude. He stood before me, head bowed, studying me intently. His usually icy eyes softened with warmth. Catching my breath, he gave a light chuckle and slowly looked away. "I merely spoke a few words on your behalf. If such a solemn thank you is due for that, then how should I repay you for saving my life and rebuilding my family?" I understood the life-saving part. But rebuilding the family? I was puzzled. Qi Jingshan explained awkwardly, "Had you not deemed me too frail to repay your life-saving debt, I would never have diligently trained in martial arts, turned my family's fortunes around, and attained my current standing. Such immense favor is akin to being reborn. It ought to be repaid with one's self." Qi Jingshan paused, his eyes churning with emotion, as if holding 1,000 deep feelings. I froze, blurting out instinctively, "You wouldn't be suggesting offering yourself in return?" Qi Jingshan lowered his gaze, his lashes trembling violently. "Why not? I never imagined Qi Jingshan could like me. After all, in both past and present lives, our only proper encounter was when he fell into the water and I saved him. Could it be love at first sight? But how old was I then? Does he have some peculiar preference?" Under my skeptical gaze, a vein throbbed prominently on Qi Jingshan's temple. He closed his eyes briefly, and when they opened again, they were as still as a deep well. "Qin Yu, your life at the Qin residence hasn't been easy. Have you ever considered leaving?" How could I not? Ever since I opened my eyes yesterday and realized I'd been reborn, I've thought constantly about how to escape the Qin household. But the current laws emphasize filial piety. They raised me from infancy. If I were to sever ties without cause, it would not only violate the law but also defy reason. I can only proceed cautiously, plotting step by step. Qi Jingshan fell silent. Have you considered another approach? I looked up blankly. A flicker of amusement crossed Qi Jingshan's eyes. He silently straightened his spine, lifting his chin slightly. For instance, marrying me? My eyes widened in shock. Yet suddenly, I realized it was indeed a brilliant idea. To escape the Qin household, marriage was the best solution. Rather than marrying someone of unknown character, marrying Qi Jingshan was preferable. I owed him a debt of gratitude, and he was a man of integrity. As long as I didn't court disaster, I could surely live well. Moreover, my father feared him. After I married, he would never actively seek me out, effectively severing ties. My eyes glowed faintly as Qi Jingshan continued. My parents are deceased, making me the sole master of the Jingguigong mansion. Marry me, and you shall rule the household. I have no interest in women. There are no concubines in my courtyard, and you alone shall be mine. Most importantly, Qi Jingshan smiled faintly, his expression haughty and commanding. I hold immense power and stand above all others. Marry me, and no one will dare wrong you again. My eyes stung, and tears nearly spilled. No one knew the torment I endured during those 1,000+ days trapped in the Lu residence in my past life. Not only did I have to fawn over Qin Shui, but even her maids dared to bark orders at me. In the worst days, I had to wash Qin Shui's feet nightly and fight the household dogs for scraps. Qi Jingshan's words struck deep into my heart. So much so that without a second thought, I choked out a single yes. Qi Jingshan slowly reached out, as if to stroke my head, but his hand froze midair. He silently withdrew it, his gaze fixed on me with restrained emotion. I shall enter the palace now to request the emperor's blessing for our marriage. He departed hastily, yet left men to guard me in secret. My heart felt settled. I immediately ordered those men to keep a close watch on Qin Shui. I knew she would never let this rest. I must track her movements and find an opportunity to crush her forever. The secret guards reported the latest developments to me every night. Qin Shui's days were far from easy. On their wedding night, Lu Qingyin didn't enter her chamber. Instead, he favored the maid she had brought along. Unable to bear the humiliation, Qin Shui confronted Lu Qingyin. In the heat of the argument, Lu Qingyin declared her face repulsive, saying the sight of her made him want to vomit. Qin Shui's fire suddenly went out. She said nothing more, seemingly broken and disillusioned. But Chu Lu claimed Qin Shui's gaze toward Lu Qingyin was icy cold, suggesting she might attempt to kill him soon. He droned on about his reasoning, but my mind wandered. Hadn't Qi Jingshan entered the palace that very day to seek the emperor's decree? How could 2 days pass without word? Could something have gone terribly wrong? I couldn't help but interrupt Chu Lu. Have you heard anything about Qi Jingshan? Chu Lu froze, shaking his head blankly. I have no knowledge, but the general instructed that if the lady sought him, we were to notify him immediately. I'll contact Chui at once. He's always with the general and surely knows his latest whereabouts. Embarrassed by his title, I hastily stopped him. After only 2 days apart, sending someone to urge him on would make me seem desperate to marry. Blushing, I shook my head. It's unnecessary. There's nothing urgent. Chui understood. Madam, you miss the general, don't you? Well, if you silently repeat his name 30 times, he'll appear. Huh? Chui taught me this trick. Whenever I faced an unsolvable problem, I'd do this, and Chui would instantly appear to help. This must be some trick to placate children. I didn't take it seriously. Yet lying awake tossing and turning that night, I found myself silently repeating Qi Jingshan's name without realizing it. By the 29th repetition, staring at the empty, pitch-black bedroom. I couldn't help but chuckle. I must be losing my mind. How could I have thought Qi Jingshan would actually appear? Yet the next second, his cool, distant voice echoed. "I hear you where Mrs. Me?" I jolted upright, staring dumbfounded at the suddenly materialized Qi Jingshan. He was holding a firelighter, igniting the candles in the room. The dim light gradually illuminated the darkness. Tall and graceful, he stood with a faint smile on his lips. His eyes, as bright as stars, looked straight into my soul, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. I stammered, "You. How did you get here? When the lady calls, how could I refuse?" Qi Jingshan chuckled softly, approaching me slowly. Only then did I notice his chest rising and falling slightly, droplets of moisture glistening at his temples and collar. He must have rushed here in such a hurry. A faint warmth touched my heart, and I shifted my gaze away, feeling slightly uneasy. Why can't you ever be serious? The title madam must have come from that chatterbox Chulu. Had I known, I would have corrected him at dusk. This awkwardness could have been avoided. Qi Jingshan, however, didn't see it that way. He reached out and pulled me into his embrace, sighing contentedly. "When it comes to the lady, I'm always serious." My cheeks flushed crimson, and I instinctively pushed him away. But outside the window, Chushi's voice rang out. "Good thing I reported it in time. Now the general can embrace his lady. This is a great achievement. Shouldn't you reward me?" "Chuyi?" His voice was hoarse and deep. "Chuyi must be a serious sort. What reward?" "Sleeping with you tonight." "Me? What kind of reward is that?" My voice nearly overlapped with Chulu's. Qi Jingshan couldn't help but chuckle, explaining softly, "Chulu is afraid of the dark. As a child, he dared not sleep alone. So Chuyi always stayed with him. But Chulu is already of age now. Isn't it strange for them to still sleep together?" A nagging unease stirred within me. I'd forgotten I was still nestled in Qi Jingshan's embrace, his gaze growing increasingly intense as he looked down at me. After a long moment, his Adam's apple bobbed slightly, his voice hoarse. "Does the lady fear the dark? Would you like me to stay?" "Me? Absolutely not." I shoved him away and burrowed under the covers. "You should go rest now." Qi Jingshan didn't leave, however. He sat on the bedside and began explaining. He said he had indeed gone to the palace to request an imperial decree for our marriage. But the emperor was so astonished that he insisted on questioning him about how they had met, grown close, and pledged themselves to each other. The emperor wouldn't let him go until he had a clear account, which was why it had taken so long. "Rest assured, the imperial decree is already written. It will be issued tomorrow." All he received in response was my shallow breathing. Since reborn from that fiery death, I dared not sleep, terrified of waking to find it all a dream. Yet with Qi Jingshan here, I felt strangely at ease. My eyelids grew heavier and heavier, beyond my control. In a haze, the bed beside me dipped slightly. I felt myself sinking into a warm embrace. "So you weren't as afraid of me as I thought." Yet fear gripped my heart. All this time wasted, how utterly damned. Warm breath tickled my ear. I couldn't help but pull my head back. Qi Jingshan chuckled softly, pulling me closer. "Sleep peacefully. I'll watch over you." Blushing, I drifted into a deep slumber. Early the next morning, Chulu reported that Qin Shui had been restless the previous night. She planned to use today's return visit to the bride's family to drug me. Then frame Lu Qing'an. She resented me for ruining her beauty and reputation. And she resented Lu Qing'an for sweet-talking her before marriage only to discard her like a worn-out shoe afterward. She aimed to kill two birds with one stone. Yet she refused to let Lu Qing'an off so easily. So she arranged another man for me. This man would disguise himself as a servant from the Lu residence. join the return procession, sneak into Qin Shui's chambers beforehand to consummate our marriage, and then lure Lu Qingyan into the trap. Chu Lu mentioned that this man bore a slight resemblance to Qin Shui and appeared quite intimate with her. But he assured me not to worry, as he had already dispatched people to investigate thoroughly. Yet I noticed his legs were stiff when he walked, his movements somewhat awkward. Are you injured? Should I call a doctor? Chu Lu's cheeks flushed crimson instantly, his gaze darting away, unable to meet mine. He mumbled, I'm fine. No injuries. I was about to ask more when Zhao, the attendant by mother's side, arrived. She said the second young miss was returning with her husband and requested my presence to receive them. Chu Lu didn't want me to go, reminding me that Qi Jingchen had specifically instructed him to protect me before rushing to the palace to urge the imperial decree. He feared I might get hurt if I wasn't careful. I smiled. You can't get the tiger's cub without entering its lair. Heaven-sent calamities may be forgiven, but self-inflicted ones deserve no mercy. I would turn her own tactics against her, making Qin Shui reap what she sowed. Preparations took longer than expected. By the time I reached the front hall, Qin Shui and Lu Qingyan had vanished, excused by fatigue, and retired to their chambers. Mother stepped forward immediately, taking my arm, her eyes and brows brimming with joy. Shui says she knows she was wrong and wants to apologize to you, though it was indeed her fault for stealing your fiancé. You also injured her face. That wound was so deep. It will surely leave a scar, a lifelong one. Let's call it even. But a human life stands between us, how can that be even? I lowered my lashes to hide the coldness in my eyes, letting mother drag me along as she chattered on toward the back courtyard. When we reached Qin Shui's boudoir, she lay still upon the bed. A centipede-like scar marred her fair face, a sight that stirred dread in anyone who saw it. Pity filled mother's eyes. She sighed softly before gathering her composure to approach and offer comfort. Shui, I've brought you air. She forgives you. Qin Shui's eyes darkened momentarily before she rose and offered me a gentle smile. It was wrong of me to take my sister's husband. Today, I'll offer tea in place of wine to make amends. Taking the teacup she handed me, I didn't drink immediately. Instead, feigning melancholy, I turned and walked to the window. It should be me apologizing to you, sister. I never truly loved Lu Qingyan, it wasn't stealing. Yet in my rage, I scarred your face and shattered our sisterly bond. Reflecting now, I realize how utterly wrong I was. Using my body as cover, Chu Shi swiftly swapped the teacup in my hand. Only then did I turn, offering Qin Shui an apologetic smile before downing the cup in one gulp. Seeing the empty cup, Qin Shui exhaled a long breath. Claiming she needed to speak privately with me, she dismissed our mother. Then, shedding all pretense, she fixed me with a gaze brimming with contempt and scorn. Sister, she said, an apology isn't enough. You must also entertain my uncle properly. My uncle? No sooner had she spoken than a man emerged from the floor-to-ceiling cabinet in the corner. Upon closer inspection, they did share a striking resemblance in their brows and eyes. Seeing my calm, unflinching expression, Qin Shui's eyes flickered. She beckoned her uncle forward, and together they began tugging at my clothes. You won't cry until you see the coffin, will you, uncle? You must make sure to. The moment they turned, Chu Shi swiftly darted in through the window, knocking both men unconscious with a single strike. He then hauled the unconscious Lu Qingyan through the window, forcing each of the three to drink the drugged tea Qin Shui had prepared. Watching their heavy breathing and flushed faces, I immediately retreated, thoughtfully closing the doors and windows behind me. Soon, the room echoed with the sounds of passion. Then, Qi Jingchen, who had come to fetch me for an imperial decree, stumbled right upon the scene. Behind him trailed a grand procession of decree bearers. along with my father and mother, carefully smiling and apologetic. It was said that a married daughter sharing a bed with her husband in her natal home would harm the family's fortune. Hearing the sounds from inside, father and mother turned ashen with rage, nearly bursting in to separate the two. Yet, ultimately, out of consideration for Qin Shui and Liu Qing'an's dignity, they could only feign ignorance. But the people inside showed no restraint. In fact, their passion grew so intense that the voices of the three grew ever louder. The imperial messenger sensed something amiss. After delivering the edict with an odd expression, he shot a meaningful glance at my father. The Qin family's inner quarters were indeed a bit too chaotic. As a veteran of the emperor's court, he knew that if word of this reached the emperor's ears, father would likely be accused of failing to govern his household properly. Such an accusation carried weight, after all. One must cultivate oneself, manage one's family, govern the state, and bring peace to the world. How could one expect to rule over the people and serve the nation if one couldn't even manage one's own household? Father was so furious he could barely catch his breath. After seeing the imperial envoy party off, he kicked open Qin Shui's chamber door. When he saw the three pale, tangled figures on the floor, he nearly choked on his own breath and collapsed. Later, however, he wished he could have fainted then and there. Qi Jingshan had produced every piece of evidence proving Qin Shui's attempt to harm me and her bitter consequences. Each piece of evidence was shocking and horrifying. This was no longer a family matter. The imperial decree for our marriage had been issued. I was to become the future duchess of the state. Qi Jingshan had every right to demand an explanation from my father. Though my father cherished Qin Shui, that affection was built on her being obedient, sensible, and never harming his interests. Now she had brought shame upon him, leaving him unable to show his face. In his fury, he even ordered her immediate execution. The poisoned wine was already being served when Mother intervened. With a complex expression, Mother shielded Qin Shui behind her, pleading that she was the only child left by Bitao and begging Father to spare her life for Bitao's sake. But in the moment of his hesitation, Qin Shui suddenly shoved her mother to the ground. Her face twisted with fury. "Don't you dare pretend to care. You're the one who killed my mother, how dare you even mention her name?" Her mother fell to the floor, her face frozen in disbelief. "Schwerer, what nonsense are you spouting? How could I possibly have killed Bitao?" Her father's brow furrowed slightly, his shock evident. "Who told you this?" Qin Shui's maternal uncle, who had been cowering in the corner, slowly raised his head. "If it wasn't for you, how could Bitao have died?" I too had once doubted whether there was more to the story behind Qin Shui's birth mother's death. After all, Mother had been so kind to Qin Shui. If she hadn't felt guilty, why would she have gone to such lengths? But Father firmly believed in Mother. It absolutely wasn't the lady who did it. He said that after Bitao's death, he had interrogated the midwife and maidservant responsible for her delivery. They all claimed Bitao had died from a difficult labor, exhausting all her strength giving birth to Qin Shui, leaving no chance for recovery. Qin Shui's maternal uncle refused to believe it. Impossible. What woman doesn't give birth? If childbirth meant certain death, wouldn't every mother in the world have perished by now? Besides, Bitao had ginseng in her hands, how could she have died from exhaustion? Mother's gaze sharpened. "How do you know Bitao had ginseng in her hands?" Qin Shui's maternal uncle said Bitao had given him a root. He claimed his mother had been bedridden for years, needing ginseng as a medicinal catalyst. But as a poor family, they couldn't afford it. Then one day, Bitao suddenly appeared, heavily pregnant, and gave him a ginseng root. He argued passionately, "She gave me a century-old ginseng root so casually. She must have had even better ones. How could she not have saved her own life?" But Mother was already weeping uncontrollably. "So you were the one who killed her?" Since ancient times, childbirth has been a journey through the gates of death for women. How could you dare take the ginseng meant to keep her alive? It turned out that back then, Mother had 4 senior maids. Though she decided to send one to Father, she hadn't made up her mind and instead let them choose whether to become concubines. In the end, Bitao shyly stepped forward before Mother. Concubines receive higher monthly allowances than maids. Miss, you know my family is poor. Because her family was impoverished. After becoming a concubine, she entrusted others to send all her monthly allowance and gifts back home. Even the tonics meant to nourish her during pregnancy were secretly sent back. Unable to bear it, Mother feared something might go wrong. As the birth approached, she deliberately gave Bitao the old wild ginseng root from her own dowry. I was damaged during Moon's birth and can bear no more children. Bitao was my personal maid, I gave her the ginseng to protect her. Never expecting her to give it to you. Her mother wiped the tears from her face. Her gaze filled with hatred for the man. You must be Bitao's cousin. The childhood sweetheart who grew up with her. She said. She devoted herself entirely to you. Yet you not only caused her death but now seek to harm her daughter. You deserve to die 1,000 deaths. The man stubbornly denied it, shouting, if she truly loved me wholeheartedly, how could she have turned around and become someone else's concubine? Wasn't it all for wealth and status? Father sensed something amiss. His beloved concubine had harbored feelings for another. Unable to bear this humiliation, he flew into a rage and ordered the man beaten to death with clubs. Lu Qing'an, the newly crowned runner-up in the imperial examinations, had been appointed as a compiler in the Hanlin Academy. He hadn't participated in the plot against me, so it wouldn't be right to punish him. Father said he would report Lu Qing'an's moral failings to the emperor for judgment. As for Qin Shui, she was utterly dumbfounded, slumped on the ground in a daze, unable to believe this truth. Mother looked pained and stepped forward to plead for her. Bitao once saved my life. Shui is her only surviving bloodline. Yuer, for Mother's sake, can you spare her life? So even after learning of her deeds, Mother still chose to stand by her? What about me? Was I meant to be betrayed? I held back, but finally couldn't contain myself. Mother, I am your biological daughter. Have you ever shown me even a single moment of favoritism? Mother's gaze slowly slid from my face and settled back on Qin Shui. You're fine, aren't you? Her voice was faint, yet it severed the maternal bond between us completely. I stood frozen in place, unable to stop the waves of trembling. It was grief born of utter disappointment. Qi Jingshan noticed my distress. Under the cover of his sleeve, he slowly took my numb hand in his. His warm, large palm was firm and strong, infusing my frozen body with strength. A warmth spread through my chest. I gave him a faint smile, signaling I was fine. Turning back, I could now look at my mother calmly. She gave birth to me and raised me. This debt is greater than heaven itself. To protect Qin Shui, I can agree, but keep her in check. If she provokes me again, I won't let her off. With that, I turned and walked away without looking back. Since the imperial decree for the arranged marriage had already been issued, and Qi Jingshan wasn't one to care about empty titles, I simply followed him to the Duke of Xingua's residence. As for the Qin residents, though I couldn't avoid seeing them again, in my heart, we had already become strangers. Story Epilogue. News of that day's events still spread. Lu Qing'an was stripped of his official position, and in his anger, he took it out on Qin Shui. The two, filled with resentment, came to blows. The servants of the Lu residence were indiscreet and blabbed about it. Within half a day, the incident became a hot topic, turning into a laughingstock throughout the capital. Unable to bear it, Lu Qing'an publicly declared that Qin Shui had seduced him, branding her a promiscuous woman. He vowed to divorce her to purify his family's honor. Everyone was watching the spectacle. I, however, had no time to pay attention to such things. For the wedding date with Qi Jingshan had arrived. A procession of red wedding attire stretched for 10 li. Drums and gongs resounding. He gave me the grandest wedding ceremony. Everything should have been perfect. But then I received a single sheet of paper. Not a word was written upon it. Only a few creases remained, as if tears had soaked through, melting the subtle snowflake pattern. That very night, news arrived. A fire had unexpectedly engulfed the Liu residence. Qin Shui and Liu Qingyan had both perished in the flames, leaving no trace of their remains. The end.